January 13th, and the time is not 6:15, it's 7:21. Madam Clerk, please prompt the roll call.
Eric Singal. Just here.
She was just
Juliet.
Here.
Lubes.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Taylor. Here. Hoffman.
present.
Gershenson. Here. Johnson.
Here.
You have quorum.
Thank you.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Thank you very much. And if everyone would kindly join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's good to see all of you and welcome to the 2025 session of our committee. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda for today, moved by Commissioner Hoffman, seconded by Commissioner Taylor. All in favor, please say aye.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I think it's really unacceptable before we approve the agenda that if we look down at the regular agenda item C, under various boards, commissions, and authorities, for some reason, some way, if you look underneath the road commission appointment, it already has the person's name chosen. I thought that was the whole point of us meeting in committee this moment, to discuss this road commission appointment. And according to the document that our agenda has, it states Jim Isheki as the general public onto the road commission.
Correct, based on the caucus vote. It was updated after the caucus and then republished for your.
So with all due respect, given that the caucus is not a recorded meeting and there's no record of discussions being taken place, I thought that's why we were actually having this meeting, to actually do something legitimately when it comes to process and procedure.
The roll call should be shown in the minutes, so the vote will be reflected in the caucus meeting.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Just yet another example of why we need to be more transparent in our caucus meetings with a full quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor of approving today's agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
One nay requires a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, would you please prompt the vote on approval of today's agenda?
You have 6 yeas, 2 nays.
Thank you very much. The agenda's been approved. Moving on to our public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to address this board on any items on the agenda? None. I'll go ahead and close today's public comment number 1. That moves us into our regular agenda. Our first item is standing committee assignments for 2025. I would entertain a motion to report to the board the appointments to standing committees for the 2025 session, moved by Commissioner Lubes, seconded by Commissioner Hoffman. Is there any discussion on the appointments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please prompt the vote? Motion on the table is to recommend to the board.
Eric Singal.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you very much, and congrats everyone on your new jobs. I hope they keep you busy and occupy your mind. Moving on to item B, it's permanent rules for the Board of Commissioners. I would entertain a motion to recommend to the board the permanent rules for the Board of Commissioners. Moved by Commissioner Taylor, seconded by Commissioner Lubes. There are 2 amendments to the proposed permanent rules. Commissioner Johnson moves amendment number 1. Do I have a second for the purposes of introducing it? Commissioner Gershenson, thank you very much. Point of personal privilege, folks, if you'll open up Johnson amendment number 1, this is that thing that we were talking about last year. Instead of actually putting the rules into the board rules, I just wanted to give us the option of having the ability to change how we do voting, because I think I'm confident in saying that none of us like how Robert's Rules does the procedure for voting for multiple nominees. That's my discussion. Commissioner.
Is this referencing the rank voting?
So this does not specifically specify which method we use. This just goes, in our board rules, literally rule number 1 says we have to use Robert's rules for everything. And all this does is gives Lago the permission to not use Robert's rules. So then next time Lago meets, we should talk about voting, and we can talk about how exactly we wanna do that. If it's ranked voice, if it's a jungle primary and a runoff, whatever. But all this does is ignores Robert's rules for the purposes of nominations. Any other discussion?
One more question.
Sure, yeah.
Tomorrow's meeting officially
Oh,
canceled?
I can do that, yes, folks. We're not gonna meet tomorrow. We only have one thing on the agenda, so instead of forcing you all to drive over here, I'll just make the next meeting super long.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Any other discussion on the Johnson Amendment?
Okay.
Motion on the table is to adopt the Johnson Amendment. Madam Clerk, please prompt the vote.
We have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Oh, thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. There is another amendment on the table. Would you like to move
Sure.
that your amendment be adopted?
Okay.
Moved by Commissioner Juliet. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Hoffman. Discussion on the Juliet Amendment number 1.
I have copies, but you guys all have it on your. So it's really, well, I guess you guys can read it, but it's section 3, C, it's Spiz and Mize amendment. This is with regard to legal opinion. I think that it's important that all taxpayers pay for corp counsel and that we all get a briefing on what their decisions are. And that I understand not everybody can have their hands in the bucket to contact corp counsel. But I think that it's fair that the minority caucus chair and the majority caucus chair should be able to seek legal opinion. And then both receive copies of what the legal opinion is to share with caucus, with all members. It's hard for commissioners to vote on topics that aren't really clear to them legally or may be out of the scope as to what we can cover. It would help with the clarification. And then the second one just basically reiterates that at the minimum, the minority and the majority caucus should be able to receive copies of what the legal opinions are that we request.
Thank you. Discussion, Commissioner Hoffman?
In the past, lots of times we've had a discussion at the board level or maybe even in committee where we talked about something and we ask a question about it and somebody might say, well, we got an opinion from court counsel. But I think in the, to be open, honest, and transparent, I think that if some member of this commission asks for a legal opinion, we should all get a copy of it. So it'll help us a little better understand what the issue is when we have to vote on it. And I think, I mean, be level the playing field. The majority caucus and the minority caucus can both ask for a legal opinion from corp counsel, and then we share that information. Just, it'll help us do our job a little better. So I absolutely support this.
Any other discussion? Commissioner?
If I may, Mr. Chair. So we've had some significant conversation. I think it's important for those members who've been here on this board for a long time. For the last 20 years, we've had a practice in place when Republicans were in the majority and now more recently Democrats in the majority. The policy is the way that, Oakland County Corporation Counsel can get an opinion, and those are requests that come through the chair. And if the minority caucus wants to seek an opinion, or if that's not granted and wants to seek their own opinion, we have outside counsel that's been approved by this board that can be sought. So to get a legal opinion, that provision's always been and has been in place. The more serious issue is that when we're talking about legal opinions from corporation counsel, they're confidential in nature. It is absolutely suitable for a body, and I know when we do claims review and other things that we will go into closed session to meet with corp counsel to discuss. It is very important that the chain of custody of those opinions does not just get sent out into the universe, because once you do that, it is no longer considered confidential, and you don't have, and then the lawyer, corp counsel cannot operate and continue to operate assuming that it is, if confidentiality has been breached. We as a board at any time can choose to make an opinion public, but once you have, you can't then make it confidential again. And so these are legal considerations. One concern, if these amendments were to be adopted, that Corp Counsel will be inclined not to issue written opinions in any order. What I have discussed in caucus, again, consistent with the practices that we've had for over 20 years, because that's as long as I've been on this board, that corporation counsel can issue an opinion, and we can, and committees can, and committees have gone into closed session with Corp Counsel or other approved actions to have those discussions, usually having that information then recollected, like the hard copy recollected as a result of it, because otherwise confidentiality is in question. So I would recommend that we vote down this amendment, maintain the practice that's served Oakland County well over the last 20 plus years. And if there are members that wish to have a conversation about those opinions, that we create a process that the board as a whole, a committee as a whole, can go into closed session with corporation counsel to do that. The last question is that sometimes we as the board had corporation counsel, like we are a client of Oakland County. Sometime a request is more personal in nature, and so needing the permission of the person that's requested that opinion to be brought into the question. But we can talk about all of that appropriately in a closed session environment, as authorized and approved by law.
So I apologize. I was under my understanding that it was not that way the previous 20 years, but I don't know, Bob, you were here.
Bob's been here.
Yeah.
Not that old.
Okay. So the minority can check with outside counsel. Who pays for outside counsel?
The board does.
So we pay for corp counsel and then we pay again for outside counsel.
Yes.
It just seems a little,
Well, so there's a couple of things, is that
Okay.
if, I'll give you a couple examples, because Commissioner Gingel's not here, but he was regularly the one that denied the minority caucus an opinion in the past. And he says, you can go to outside counsel to get said opinion. Because it is important to have counsel available to the minority caucus to be able to get legal opinions as they see fit. And they can request, and that's written into the rules as it has been historically, again, over the last 20 years. Like, I don't think any of that's changed in 20 years. Sometimes, if, let's say, corporation counsel makes an opinion on a matter that as a board as a whole that we're in disagreement with, we could also go to outside counsel to get another opinion to balance again or challenge said opinion as a way to proceed to go forward. So it works in both directions.
okay, well, I'm gonna plead ignorance because I wasn't here before.
think it's fair.
So it
No,
doesn't,
but
to
Bob
me, it
was.
just seems like duplicity, but, and then in regards to,
Remember, a corporation counsel is not appointed by us.
right?
So-
I'm just saying to have two councils, it would just seem more efficient to have one, like corp counsel that we all
Well,
go,
we-
that's my
Right.
point.
Well, we could have the conversation about, right, so when you are the person that hires counsel, then the question is, and corporation counsel works very hard to be the counsel to Oakland County elected officers as well as other elected officials and departments and everything. But what happens when there's a situation, there's a conflict between one department and the executive office or something, and so, which is what would provides for the ability for outside counsel to address those.
Okay, and then the issue of providing written statements, which I get, I remember the private sessions, but there's a lot that goes on that's not private session, that's just pertaining to things that are on the board floor that somebody raises their hand, they want corp counsel's opinion, and we never, we don't get an update on it. It would be nice to know what those opinions are. I'm not saying they have to be all, they don't have to be private session or the different boards, just to the Board of Commissioners.
So written corporation counsel opinions are confidential in its inception. And then, again, can be discussed in closed session in the board, but I mean, are we, I guess I'm.
I'm trying to think, there's a number of times that we've been on the floor and there's been a question that we want Corp Counsel's opinion.
So I've heard this like reference today, it's generally says Corp Counsel looked at this. And so when we do contracts,
Okay.
Corp Counsel
Okay.
Corp Counsel, as a process of approving all contracts, Corp Counsel, there's a review process that's spelled
Right.
in that Corp Counsel, the contract does not move unless Corp Counsel has signed off on it. And
So that's the.
so I would say,
I guess
so the question is
that's-
like, does Corp Counsel review? Like, they will review in the contract phase. The contract might not even be written at the point when we vote on something to appropriate dollars to do something. But Corp Counsel does look at the contract. when
Okay,
it's-
I guess I'm talking a little bit more beyond contract discussions, but I'm good.
Thank you. I'm gonna recognize myself and then I'll recognize you, Commissioner Nelson. So there's been a lot of conversation, I think frankly, in both caucuses about Corp Counsel opinions, and I will just say, I am inclined to vote no on these, not because I think that legal opinions should not be available, but because this gives a inordinate benefit to the minority caucus that is not available to regular commissioners. And I find that curious. And I will also plead ignorance of being a relatively new kid on the block. I would be shocked if the minority caucus for the last 20 years had the privilege that this would give. So this feels a little bit too partisan to me to put into board rules. I appreciate it, but it does feel a little bit inordinately partisan. And that is my comment. Commissioner Nelson,
I'm good, thank you.
any other comments? Seeing none, motion on the table is to adopt,
One more
oh,
thing.
sorry, yeah.
I don't see how wanting to be more open, honest, and transparent is partisan.
Oh,
And I
sure.
agree with the chairman that the confidentiality part. And we're not just talking about contracts here, because I understand that fully. They have to sign up, corporate counsel has to sign off on those before we sign on the dotted line. But I think we're talking about other things where we ask for an opinion from corporate counsel. I've heard that on the floor many times and never hear another thing about it. I think that, and I like the option too of, if you don't like the opinion of corporate counsel, we have the option to go get a second opinion. I think that's
Or a
good.
first opinion if you don't have a corporation counsel opinion.
Right, but the thing is, why don't we get the opinion from corporate counsel, and if we don't agree with it, and it might be an action of this board that somebody questions, do we have a legal right to do this?
Commissioner Hoffman, since your question was addressed to me, I will just say you do have the option, and it's to go to the board chair that we all just elected and request a council opinion.
Okay, why can't the majority caucus and the minority caucus person go ask for corporate counsel
Well,
opinion?
that does make it partisan. In this way, the entire board, oh, it does. Majority and minority are stand-ins for Democrat and Republican. We all know that. The board as a whole elected a board chair, and like it or not, in our board rules, that board chair is vested with the power to request legal opinions from board counsel.
Okay.
That is the legitimate, with a capital L, way of doing that.
Okay, so if somebody on the minority side goes to the chairman and he just says no, then we can go hire and the taxpayers will pay for it, an opinion from an outside counsel?
Oh, I'm not sure, but
So the practice in place is that there is outside counsel that the board has retained that can be used for that purpose. So if, there is not an inkling in which that has happened, that I'm gonna speak for myself. I will speak of the past in which we made requests for opinions and we were told no and then had to go to outside counsel to get an answer. The access to outside counsel so that the minority caucus can get an opinion is enshrined in the board rules. If it's denied to go, if a request for an opinion is denied.
Commissioner Nelson.
Again,
Thank you. So I'm gonna bring an example in, I think, because we're gonna actually be talking about it in our next item here. So when I take a look at Appendix A of the board rules, Chairman Woodward, there's a lot of edits. I briefly mentioned a little bit of this earlier today. There's a lot of edits to the public comment procedure of our board rules. I could ask you, has Corporation Counsel reviewed this document? Has Corporation Counsel reviewed Appendix A with all the changes that have been made leading into this meeting today?
And if Michael's here, so our chief of staff I believe has been in contact with Corporation Counsel as staff was taking in the discussions and consensus. I hope you hear it, yep, there it is.
So looking
Okay, good,
at,
so maybe you can answer that question.
and in all
I love
fairness,
when I get
I have asked,
The short answer is,
At the direction of the chair, it was reviewed by Corp Counsel.
so when we say reviewed, that's me just handing over the document and asking them to review it like a contract, making sure that we're good to go. Because I say this because there's a lot of language in Appendix A under the public comment procedure that I don't agree with. I think that is very, very strong. And what I would want to know is, did Corporation Counsel give specific feedback on any of these things? Because my understanding is, if I'm submitting something to Corporation Counsel, they're only answering what I'm asking them. And so one of the specific examples I'm gonna ask when this item comes up is, has Corporation Counsel reviewed the language in Appendix A? And me taking a vote on it, Mr. Chair,
okay.
I would wanna know, okay, such strong language that you are only permitted to directly talk to relevant county government. That's open-ended, Mr. Chair. You know, and I both know, there are a lot of conversations that this body has outside of county government, but we have those conversations. So this is gonna be a specific question I'm gonna ask when we come to this is, has Corporation Counsel given approval of making just that statement? And there's a plethora of other statements within this draft document that I am uncomfortable with, because I truly believe it takes away the opportunities for the public to participate.
And I appreciate that. Since that's not germane to the amendment at hand, I'm gonna put a sticker in
Okay.
that. Are there any other discussions about Joliet Amendment number 1? Seeing none, motion on the table is to adopt Joliet Amendment number 1. Madam Clerk, please prompt the vote.
There. We have 3 yeas, 5 nays.
An insufficient number voting in the affirmative, the amendment fails. Motion on the table is to adopt permanent rules for the Board of Commissioners as amended. Discussion. Commissioner Nelson.
Question on Appendix A.
Fair.
We did not talk about this at all. I know in caucus, this draft was sent out on Friday evening. There has been no opportunities to fully discuss. So I would like, if you don't mind, briefly, Mr. Chair Woodward, if you could go over some of the changes to a lot of the language in this Appendix A in regards to the new public comment procedure.
So I'm gonna hand it over to our chief of staff who captured the conversation in our caucus last week and explain where, I mean, that's not it, but
Yeah,
you need
this
it
isn't
in front of you.
We can get rid of that. Is there anything, I mean, I guess I could be here to answer specific questions. There is quite a good procedure here in front of you, but.
Go.
I'll use the example question that I gave. So if you take a look, I'm trying to find it. So number 7, during the second public comment period, comments may be permitted on matters directly relevant to county government. There seems to be a lot of subjective language laced throughout this entire document. In fact, when I read it, I was actually quite shocked because it's so subjective. It was basically the mood of the chairperson that day proceeding over our meetings is really what depends on how the interpretation of Appendix A is gonna go that day. I think it's important that there's consistency with the expectations that we have with our public comment, and we honor public comment to our public without putting such brass language, because really, to sum it up, if the the way that the language is in this appendix, if the chairperson doesn't want to have you talk about that, then the chairperson has the discretion to shut that down. And I think as a public body, it is our responsibilities as elected officials that we should be attentive and provide those opportunities for the public to share whatever they so shall choose in light of coming to the county and speaking.
Commissioner Nelson?
Yes, sir.
Was there one specific question or?
So the subjectivity of the language, I'm concerned about. So was there any conversations when Corporation Counsel did review this? And again, I know Corporation Counsel is only gonna answer what they're asked. So if they're not asked these specific questions, it does become alarming.
So, yeah, they were asked specific questions as to the legal aspect of this with relation to Open Meetings Act. And their response was that everything passes the Open Meetings Act and abides by that law.
So, and I get that and I respect that, sir. But at the end of the day, again, have we all read this new public comment procedure? Because it's intense. It's really disappointing that we're not having the discussions on providing the public an opportunity to hear and participate. But I think,
Okay.
I think,
Let me- if I may
Mr.
just-
Chair, I'm done and we should just move on with the vote because I see where the writing on the wall is with all these, so
I
save it for the
appreciate-
board of the floor.
I'm gonna recognize Commissioner Erickson Galt and then Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Erickson Galt.
So I'm reading number 7. I don't see anything in there that allows the chair any discretion in the subject matter of it. I see that the chair has some discretion on the amount of time allotted. It says speakers shall be allotted a maximum of 3 minutes or such time as determined by the chair in accordance with sections 4 and 5. So the chair has some discretion on that. The sub A, as I'm reading it, only states that we can permit people to speak on matters directly relevant to county government. It doesn't limit it, doesn't say it's only matters relevant to county government, and it doesn't give this chair any discretion. So I don't know where you're getting this.
Commissioner Woodward.
And I guess I would just say, as a matter of practice, that I believe Oakland County has bent over backwards, hours and hours, to allow the public an opportunity to not just address this board, in some cases with such level of redundancy that lots of things being said, the same thing being said by lots of people, and we lean into that. And all of these rules are frankly subject to the majority of the board to make sure that we do that. And I can say, as your chair, I will never compromise the ability for the public to come and address us. And so I would just let the past be an informant to inform how this and other matters get handled going forward.
Commissioner Julia.
I just have a question for Commissioner Galt. Doesn't Troy limit do they do something with their public comment on things relevant to the city government? Or no?
They have 3 public comment sessions. The first one is for, they divide it up both based on whether you live or work in Troy versus people outside.
Okay.
And then they also divide it up versus whether it's items on the agenda or items about anything else.
Okay.
Because the impetus for that is we were getting people coming in and jamming up at the beginning of the meeting, including one guy from Texas at one time came in and yelled about.
Oh, I'm familiar with local government, so that's fine. Okay.
And so they had that complicated procedure to try to,
I get that,
if you
yeah.
wanna come and scream at us about something that's completely irrelevant to Troy, you gotta wait till the end of the
I
meeting.
get that. Okay.
So that was kind of, that's
okay.
my impression of why they did it that way.
All right.
And they have a time limit
Okay.
and it's 3 minutes. And that is a set time limit and that the council can extend that,
Right.
by action, by voting at the time.
Okay.
I also know that the Troy School Board has a 3-minute limit, but they actually reduce the amount based on how many speakers. So if they get a huge amount of speakers show up, you're down to like 2 minutes or in some cases 1 minute.
Okay.
So
All right.
there's a lot of discretion in those local boards.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? Motion on the table is then to approve or to recommend to the full board the permanent rules of operation for the Board of Commissioners for 2025 through 2028. Madam Clerk, please call the vote. As amended, yes.
You have 6 yeas, 2 nays.
Thank you very much. Rules are being reported to the full board. Moving on then to item C, I would entertain a motion to report to the board the appointments as listed in resolution number 2024-4840 attached in our booklets. There are several amendments there. Moved by Commissioner.
No, I would like to say I'd like to pull the road commission off of this for a vote of the committee.
The formal term of that is.
Need a separate vote?
Yeah.
Separate the vote?
For the committee or take it out for the full
For
board?
both.
Oh,
Yeah. would start here.
The appointments stand in isolation like it has in previous years.
Separate the question first, that's its own thing, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, that one automatically happens, I don't take a vote on that? Could you check on that? Could you check on it?
You're voting for.
A request to separate the question.
Yeah, but I think from what I'm hearing is they wanna take it off of, they wanna
The
strike it
list.
out of
The-
the list.
Yeah.
You wanna divide the question.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
So why?
Spiking it is a different thing, but
That's a
dividing the
different
question,
thing, but dividing the question will make 2 votes.
correct. And I believe that one happens without a vote, correct? That one just automatically, no? There's a vote? Oh,
Motion and vote.
is it a formal motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Could you prompt the vote on dividing the question? That's what it's called.
Or we can do a roll call.
Sure.
No? Okay, perfect.
It's just called divide.
So this motion is
To divide the
to
question.
divide.
I haven't seen that one in person. I've only heard of dividing the question in theory.
It's an important one,
Oh,
especially.
it sure is.
They're
Your
hiding
public health
stuff.
and safety.
You have 5 yeas, 3 nays.
The question's been divided. I would now entertain a motion to recommend to the board the appointments listed on resolution 2024-4840 that as divided, so without the road commission included.
I move it.
Moved by Commissioner Hoffman, seconded by Commissioner Lubes. Is there discussion on those appointments? Seeing no discussion, motion on the table is to recommend those appointments to the full board. Madam Clerk, please proper vote.
So just to be clear, that last portion where the name's already filled in, that's not included, right? Because there was no refresh or anything done before we took the vote. So I want to make sure that my vote is accurately reflected on what we're voting
Yes, correct. I mean, that whole section's
is.
just gone. That section's just
on.
gone.
Okay, because I still see it.
Oh,
We
it's
need to
definitely
do
still-
it, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
So what?
We need to redo it, we need to there's an attachment, right? So we have to create a new attachment without road commission, and then there will be a separate
Just want
attachment
to make sure
for
my
road
vote's
commission.
reflected on the right document.
The PDF is wrong, but the vote is correct.
You have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, on that one. I would now, hold on, let me make sure that I'm thinking correctly.
Yeah, this doesn't.
I would now entertain a motion to nominate James Sasaki to the Oakland County Road Commission. Moved by,
Recommend to the full board.
to recommend to the full board that nomination to the Oakland County Road Commission. Was a motion by Bob Hoffman, Commissioner Hoffman, seconded by Commissioner Erickson Galt. Got him owing a lot of money to Commissioner Lubes' money fund. Discussion, Commissioner Lubes.
Well, my discussion regarding the road commission was another nomination. I'd like to see Andrea Lalonde's name on there, so how do we make that happen and vote
Or do we
between the two?
Sorry, yeah, no, that is a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah,
Did
no,
I do
Chair?
that? I'm
You would
sorry.
have met.
Yeah.
a motion to amend to change the name.
But there's the vote on the floor.
Sorry, so this is a,
We can
This is
go at
Lago.
ease for a minute.
could we, is everyone okay with that?
It's up to you.
Can we get an opinion from corporate?
Good one, Bob.
Oh, Lago's going at ease at the call of the chair. So we're doing a nomination.
We're still on air.
You divided it.
Okay.
Can we?
They got it. I'll go with you for the walk, Penny.
It's a lot of sausage making today, the casing and everything.
I know you. I know you are. That wasn't a woman, that was the guy.
Bob's
Okay.
ready to go home.
Do you want me to wait?
No, I'm ready to go to the lobby and eat.
Same.
Food's all gone. Penny should be here anytime.
Is it? Are we ready?
Born
Look at
ready.
they.
2 more seconds.
Boy, you made a hustle for the lobby.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna have to.
One more thing and we can all go eat. Angry all the
Okay, yeah,
Oh.
Commissioner, so just have you update your devices. We've now made that item you separated out, or a separate item, so.
Okay, beautiful.
Oops.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scroll
Aaron, I don't know what's going on.
Okay, got
Scroll
it.
down. Oh, not leave. Oh, that's okay, you're in. Scroll down. You'll see it's just separated out.
I see.
Refreshed it.
Okay, so.
Yep, there it is.
Oh, sorry, calling this meeting back to order.
Okay.
Alright, cool, we're back. It's a, by the way. So there is a motion and it is on a new resolution number, which is the appointment of James Sasaki to the Oakland County Road Commission appointment. It sounds like Commissioner Lubes is moving to amend that resolution to replace the name, correct?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second on that motion? Seconded by Commissioner Nelson. Discussion on the amendment, on the Lubes amendment. Do you want to discuss?
Well, if she wants to go, I
Yeah, that's
will yield to you, Penny. Or do you wanna eat first?
I think experience, wisdom, knowledge prevails with Andrea, and that's what I'd like to see on the road commission.
Appreciate it.
I haven't applied.
Yeah, well, speaking of which, Mr. Chair, if I
My name is
may,
Bob.
because that's,
Commissioner Nelson.
has this individual, has Jim Asheki, has he applied?
So we did not solicit for applications
Okay.
for this job. I
How-
did go back and look at our minutes from that meeting that we were discussing this.
Sure.
We elected to postpone until today to open
How
this
did this
discussion.
name get brought forward?
Through a nomination by who nominated?
Was that in this body? Did we nominate in this body initially?
Oh, someone did, someone made the
Or,
motion.
but,
Could you remind
what
me
I'm-
who just made the motion on the floor?
I'm sorry, maybe I need to clarify my question. So who brought this name initially forward? And I'm asking this because as a member of the legislative committee, we've never heard this name in committee. So I'm wondering how we came to this name in this committee.
Okay, just to remind you, Fantastic Staff was able to find an application from Mr. Asaki from 2023. So his application was at one point in front of Lago, but it was, his name wasn't considered. So we have the application.
But I just want to clarify, and I appreciate that, thank you. But as far as this appointment goes for 2024, I am not aware of the Lago Committee having any discussion on Mr. Asheki. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because the name was brought forward in the Democratic caucus, is basically what I wanted to just make public stance on in regards to just making sure for the records, this person did not go through the committee process. We did not follow the committee process.
Respectfully, Commissioner, he's going through the committee process right now, and you're welcome to nominate anyone else also.
This seems to be a consistent thing we do with the road commission appointment every term. We don't follow the process. I know that we received Ms. Lalonde's letter of intent of wanting to reapply. We talked about that in Lago, but that is the only discussion, Chair, that we've had in regards to this. And it was only until caucus a week ago, which is not recorded, which is off the record, was that name brought forward by another commissioner who does not sit on this committee. I think it's important, since we don't have public record of this person's name and how we got to where we are today, it's important for public record today that that's clear how this name got forward. It did not follow any process. It was brought forward.
Alright.
And I want to make that clear for this committee. I
No.
don't agree with the process that was followed.
I appreciate you saying that, and I'm going to recognize Commissioner Woodward, but I will just say, as a protocol stickler myself, and game respects game, but I am also a protocol stickler. And this nomination is a legitimate nomination that was made in this committee today. It is currently going through the committee process, and regardless of whose name you want on that resolution, the resolution is being discussed today in committee, and it will go to the full board today.
Do we have a resume? At minimum, do we have a resume? I mean, I hear you say this
Commissioner
name
Woodward,
got brought
yeah, thank you.
forward.
So,
Pass it over to the chair.
this process is consistent, and Commissioner Hoffman, you can back me up on the discussion and how road commissions have been, have been recommended through majority caucuses that have been brought through this process and approved in the board. That has been the process for 20+ years. It was the process when Ms. Lalonde was first considered. It was the process of the next commissioner. It was the process of the next commissioner for the road commission. It is consistent to this day. So anything to the contrary is just false and disregards everything. And the question, is before you appropriately.
Mr. Chair, for the record, having sat on Lago since 2019, the process veered in 2022. And I just want to state that the process veered in 2022 from 2019. I was also the vice chair at the time with Nancy Quarles as the chair of this committee, and we veered for process in 2022. So thank you.
I don't know what the process was. I do know that there is a committee happening literally right now. There is a motion on the table. There's an amendment being offered to that motion on the table. And I, as a chair, am happy to give anyone the chance to make any other amendment motions also. That is okay. We, as a committee, this committee, chooses deliberatively whether or not we want to solicit for appointments to our various committees. And we don't always do that. A lot of our incumbents want to stay, and very often, for whatever reason, we ignore our standard open solicitation and application and interview process, and that's okay. There's not a lot of hoopla for a lot of those. Some of them, we are wide open and we want to solicit and we get dozens of applicants and we have weeks and weeks and weeks of interviews, and that's okay too. But it is a deliberative process that I'm aware has happened since I've joined this board. I see this as a legitimate process. Whether or not it ruffles feathers is one thing, but whether or not it's legitimate is another. And for the record, I think that this is still legitimate. Commissioner Gershenson. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, she can go first and
Okay,
then I'll go.
Commissioner Gershenson.
Gonna call the question,
No, that's, sorry. That is a,
but I.
Because you
are you officially calling the question or?
Wanna go?
Yeah, I just have a
Sure.
brief comment to make. I met James Asaki and you seem like a very nice gentleman. My concern is to Commissioner Loops had pointed out, the importance of, the institutional knowledge, the knowledge of Public Act 51 and the appropriation of funding. The road commission is in, as all road commissions are gonna be in a tight situation with the road funding changes, with the electrical vehicles. I put the institutional knowledge and the knowledge of Public 51 paramount on our selection. So for that, I'm gonna be supporting Commissioner Lalonde because she has shown that she can execute that knowledge appropriately.
Appreciate that. Commissioner
I
Gershenson.
will say before I do that, I was on this board when the Republican caucus appointed Eric Wilson, Ron Folks. It was not, it was an appointment, it was not anything that was decided by the committee, it was decided by the majority party. Having said that, I will like to call the question.
Question's been called on amending the resolution to replace the name James Sasaki with the name Andrea Lalonde. Madam Clerk, would you please prompt the vote on the amendment?
Okay, so we're voting on,
Yeah, what are we?
No, this
Lalonde.
didn't. Yeah, but that's not what it says.
Okay.
Take mine.
This vote is, yes is yes, Andrea Lalonde. No is no, Andrea Lalonde. Yes, correct. Yeah, okay, reprompt everyone, make sure you're good.
Three yeas and 5 nays.
An insufficient number voting in the affirmative, the amendment has failed. The motion on the table is to recommend to the board the appointment of James Sasaki to the Oakland County Road Commission. Madam Clerk, please prompt that vote, unless there's any last minute discussion. Okay, Madam Clerk, please prompt the vote.
Put his name in there, please. You have 6 yeas, 2 nays.
Thank you very much. That motion passes and is being recommended to the board. Moving on then to public comment number 2. Anyone from the public wishing to address us on anything under the sun, please come forth.
Is it under the sun?
Under the moon. Seeing none, I will close public comment number 2. Any other business?
Nope.
Cool. I will adjourn. It is 8:10. Everyone go eat.